All right, I'm gonna go over the rear wheel swap and swing arm swap on my 2014 CB1100. Now, the aluminum swing arm is a stock CB1100 RS version. It bolted straight into the frame. The guy I bought it from off eBay included the two side spacers that are on either side of the swing arm. The left side, I checked part numbers online. The left side is exactly the same. The right side was different, but when it showed up, I measured the stock one from my bike and that one, and they were the same length. But the new one for this one was a different design. I believe it had a flange on it. It was a little wider, had more contact area. So I opted for that one, figuring it was a revised design. So bolting the swing arm to the bike was straightforward. It used the same axle bolt or pivot bolt and everything, same torque specs and everything. So that went on no problem. It was adapting the wheel. I ran into a little bit of issue. Started with the brake. On the brake side, I wanted to use the stock MT07 brake, so I didn't have to futz with the spacing of the caliper from the wheel and everything. But the problem was with the caliper retainer. I'll try to get a good shot in here. I basically used the stock caliper holder for the MT07, and I had to adapt it with this aluminum plate to the, let's see if I can kind of see it in there. That's the slider to allow it to adjust forward and backward as you adjust the chain slack. I had to adapt that. So I basically designed it, 3D printed some different prototypes, found something that worked, had it sent out by Xometry, and they made me one in aluminum, and I just TIG welded it to the MT07 bracket, and then that got that ready. I believe I was gonna take the wheel off to kind of explode this view a little bit, but I'm working on the front, so I can't get the rear wheel off at the moment. I believe this side spacer in between the caliper bracket is the stock one from the other side of the CB1100. So then if we move back over to this side, the sprocket carrier was the stock MT07 one, but I did need to machine, and I kind of got some 3D printed parts I made here. I had to make a spacer for it, so it kind of has this lip to help keep the sprocket central, and so it doesn't kind of move around as the wheel spins, and it just spaces it out. I believe it was 10 millimeters, and I got the aluminum one on here. I had Xometry do that again. I needed a custom spacer on this side to get the spacing correct, and that lines the chain up real nice. The other thing was with the shocks, I had to change the bushing out on the bottom of the shock. I have these are the stock bushings that I pressed out, and this is the part number for the CB1100 RS. Even though they are the Showa shocks, they press directly into these. And then I also got the stock. This is an OEM bolt that I ordered. I believe that is this number right here. I got two of those. They weren't that expensive to order, so I just ordered two of them. I did have to go get a nut. I got just like a stainless nut to thread onto the backside. So that solved the shock. The stock chain guard here, it's a little short, so I kind of just rigged up a piece of metal that went through. I didn't use a lock nut on the back of this, so the nut had come free and I lost that. So I just, for the meantime, I got a zip tie in there, but I just extended it. And there's no support on the back like the stock swing arm has, so it's a little loose, but I mean, I put 1,000 or so miles on the swap, and it hasn't gone anywhere. We go back to the other side here. Oh, and real quick, the next issue I ran into was these axle sliders. The CB1100 RS uses a give or take 1-inch axle, a 25 millimeter axle, and the stock CB uses a 20-inch, or I'm sorry, 20 millimeter axle. So what my buddy did is he made some space. This is the stock CB1100 RS axle adjuster. He pressed in some adapters to basically take up the slack, so that these used to be 25 millimeters in the inside diameter here, and now they allow for just the 20 millimeter axle to go through. This is the stock CB1100 axle through here, the stock retaining nut and everything, so that fit. The next issue was the speed sensor here. So I 3D printed one of those. Oh, here it is. So I 3D printed it. I made sure it fit and everything. And I actually, when it arrived from Send Cut Send out of metal, I must have messed up the design a little bit. I updated the design that I put on Bamboo Studios to make this inner diameter a little larger. There was just enough play in the plastic to mount it onto the wheel. But when it was metal, it didn't quite fit, and I had to file it down just a hair to get that to fit. But this new sensor, I did the math, and I forget how to do it at this point. I have to go back and do the math again. But it basically takes into account the smaller circumference of this tire versus the larger 18. And I used a GPS speedo on my phone and compared it to the speedometer up there, and it was within like a mile an hour or so at like 60 miles an hour. So it's more than accurate. And then to pick up from there, I simply use, this is the stock MT07 ABS sensor, which goes into the stock housing on the caliper bracket. I did have to clearance that a little bit. So I basically cut it out so it could swing out a little bit to adjust for the larger diameter ring here. And then I kind of just 3D printed this little PLA cover. And this is PLA, and this is held up the whole time. There's no cracks in it. It's a little dirty, but it's holding, and it's, you know, if I got the file on hand, I can print another one if it breaks. Other than that, I did have to splice this into the stock speed sensor. And initially when I took it for a test drive, it didn't work. I was a little bummed. All I did was flip the wires, because there's just 2 wires in here. I flipped the wires, and then the speedometer, just like that, started working. And I was real happy about that. I think the 17-inch wheel looks killer. Finding rear wheels for the MT07 I thought would be pretty easy. You know, you can find the rear wheels everywhere for these. MT09, MT07 I believe are the same. I thought the same would be I thought it would be the same with the front wheel. It turns out that those are a little harder to come by. They're a little bit more expensive. But I am in the process of swapping the front wheel, and this wheel might be on backwards, but I'm just getting the caliper spacing correct. Right in here is that's a plastic adapter that I'm working on right now. So that's got the spacing for the caliper. It moves the caliper basically in more. The spacing rotor to rotor on these wheels are a little smaller than the stock wheels. And right now I just have some ABS printed holes, or these placeholders for now, so I can just use this 1/4-inch rod to center the wheel. You know, obviously I got to get bearings in here and finish the front, but I'll make another video on that later. But for now, I mean, I got all the part numbers over here that, you know, I had the bolts. This was the part number, I believe the stock spacer from Yamaha that goes in between the wheel and the brake caliper holder. So it's just that little, turns out that I believe the wheel I bought came with it, so I didn't end up needing that. But I believe I think I went through everything that I did. And yeah, like I said, I think it looks killer now. I'm just excited to get started on the front. These are the, you know, wheels like this, 17-inch wheels with this 180 rear tire are really how this bike should have came. I will say it's maybe a little less nimble, a little slower to turn in with the wider tire, but I think it looks killer, and you can get a lot more, you know, different kinds of rubber for the 17-inch wheel. All right, guys, let me know if you have questions in the comments.